Hiya, hiya. It's another broadcast from Birdland, the Joey Reynolds rap, and I'm sitting out on my porch. Why am I in Florida? Short sleeves. Try this one in Buffalo in December. We have the weather. We have good weather. We got the hurricanes season is over. The guy who was in charge of all of this, the Hurricane Center, his name is Bob Sheets. And I always say it's 3 sheets to the wind. I got to use a bad pun or I haven't made my day, And I'm going to write a book. Everybody's got a book. I don't know why everybody writes books when no one reads. But my book is going to be, I get it, and I hope you do too. But, I get away with a lot of things on the air they say. I don't get away with anything. I just happen to be honest. And also, I can make comments about the urban community and about gays and about women and all the things that you're not supposed to be able to talk about, which is ridiculous. It used to be sex, religion, and politics were impolite. Now, everything is impolite because anything goes, but nothing is appropriate. Being inappropriate, I don't mind talking about the things that are my experience and in life. And everybody knows where I'm coming from. And in the black community, we call people who are disrespectful, we say they're talking trash. And I'm not talking trash. I happen to be a very articulate person. I'm very isolated and pointed about my trash. It's designated trash. Now, I have a story to tell you about L.A., the Santa Monica Boulevard, where they used to have a railroad that went by there when L.A. was still interested in having a train, and they were going to be a city that had mass transit because it got waylaid. If you ever saw the movie Roger Rabbit, that's a true story based on the killing of the railroads and the trains and the buses in LA, where they now wanted to have everybody with a car because it sold tires and oil, which was the interests of the two families. The Harriman family had the trains, the Rockefellers had the oil, Gettys had the oil, still do. And who else had the tires? Firestone. All these guys that were here first. This is a WASP country, I don't know if you know this or not, but this country was built on white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, and they don't want to surrender the power, It's Wasp Time. Someone says, the difference between a wasp and a Jew. I said, yeah. Oh, man. You could tell if a wasp is a Jew if he's wearing a yarmulke. Would you stop fighting me? What are you doing? Doesn't like what I'm talking about. That's all. This is the censoring bird. They have. She wants to play. See, and she doesn't know that she's biting my wire that gives me the sound. She doesn't know that. Maybe she does know that. Whatever the case, I want to tell you about Santa Monica Boulevard, which had a place called Barneys Beanery. It was a pool place, pool hall. With a bar, tavern. And they didn't want, West LA is essentially gay, and they didn't want to have anybody in there who was gay, so they put a sign above the bar that said "No fags allowed." Well, that wasn't very popular with the gay community who lived in that whole neighborhood. That happened to be a bar where there were bikers, and it just wasn't the right location. They're right in the middle of things that were gayer than pink mink, which reminds me of my friends, the lesbians, LBTG, LBGT. Everybody's got initials, They opened a place in New Jersey. They have a sandwich place that they opened. What's it called? It's called Jersey Dykes. Yeah, that's it. And the highlight of that place is to go in there, and they actually have a picture of Ellen DeGeneres wearing a skirt, which is really precious. Now, I think you got to know that when you talk about gays and about blacks and birds wanting to cut my wire, boy, am I glad I got Fios. That's what I'm going to call this bird from now. Hi, Fios. How are you? You are digital, and you're going to be called sooner because the sooner I get rid of you, the better it's going to be. So I'm sitting here thinking about all of the inappropriate things that I've said on the air. But they're not inappropriate to me. See, they're part of my lifestyle. They're inappropriate to people who are out of my zone. People they want to have a little bit of privacy, and they don't also want you to interrupt their thoughts or their thinking. And then there are people who are very much locked into their religious beliefs or their political beliefs, and they're not going to be moved, you know. You probably have seen this with the vaccine. You know, that became controversial. It's like being a Democrat in Texas. You know, you may as well be Davy Crockett if you're going to give up your gun. It's going to be a big fight and a fort. What did you have? Alamo, right? Remember the Alamo? I remember that. I remember it. See, it worked. So we got to talk about things that are very important on the air, and we don't. We don't want to talk about them. Why? Because the content is always a police blotter. They open up every show with who did what wrong. I think what happens on local news, they go down to the police station, they say, oh, okay, now let's open that book and let's see who did what last night. And then in the morning, they have all that news. It's not really news. News is spelled N-E-W-S. It means north, east, west, and south. Used to be put together by newsmen or news people, men in those days they were called. And what happened was people would go out and find stories, reporters. They would dig for stories. There was a time when Geraldo Rivera was a hero in New York. He followed a corrupt judge down the street with a camera behind him, which was heavy in those days. They were not, it was not an eye camera. So he followed this judge, and he took him to task and punished him right on the air. And he became a hero because he was someone who went for the truth. He was a journalist, and he was a what they would call a guerrilla fighter. We've had a lot of those people. I have a friend, Chuck DeCaro, who was on CNN in the early days when they had fighters. My other friend, right now, he's not even working in the business. I got a guy who's living up in Florida, up in the Panhandle there, and he has a delivery truck for lobster. I mean, I don't know what the lobster market is in Florida, but I guess it must be pretty strident. Anyway, my friend Rob Milford, who was a great newsman, and all he did was he had a gun in his attaché case, and he went through some sort of a check-in at the airport security, and they saw the weapon, and the KDKA, the station in Pittsburgh, decided that it was dangerous. Like Cuomo's brother now. You know, I mean, he was protecting his brother. And if you had a brother that was the governor of the state or the president of the United States, don't you think, as Trump's kids were, I mean, you know, this is an honor position, but also you got a little bit more clout. And we all like having our names remembered, and we also like having our table, you know, the one that you can't get into the place unless you're famous. And we like having that kind of service. And I love, Mr. Reynolds, how would you like your steak? Well, I'm a vegetarian. I thought you were a fruit. Now, you know what? People are thinking about things all of the time on privilege. And you have it when you're a politician, that's for sure. So Cuomo's son, not his son, I mean his brother, was on CNN. And it's the right channel for Democrats. I mean, I don't know what the heck that's all about. They decided they're not going to let him on anymore, probably saving the money. And the other thing is that there are people who are disgruntled because they already took a position on something that hasn't been in court. You know, we try all of our cases on television now. We don't wait till they get to the courtroom. They don't get to the courtroom. They try them on the TV, and it's right there, right in front of you. And then you say, oh, yeah, you make your judgment. And, you know, they say if you point a finger at someone, you got 3 pointing back at yourself. So be careful about your judgment, you know. I mean, they say that I have poor judgment. I don't have poor judgment. I just have no judgment on a lot of things. Why? Because like Johnny Carson, you know, you never knew what his politics were, but you kind of got an idea. You got an idea about Bob Hope, but you never really said it. Those early day comics, they were stars, and you didn't know what their politics was necessarily. But these days, even who is it going to run for governor of Texas? He pulled out of it anyway. McClune, or what's his name again? The guy that played Magic Mike. He was a stripper in a movie. If he did that, he probably would win. In certain states, you know, that's pretty cool. Take all your clothes off, and if you're not in shape, you're not going to make it. You better get to a therapist and find out why you don't have the votes. Yeah, you know, we don't find out from pollsters anymore. We find out from therapists. They tell us why we're not loved. And then we have to love ourselves, you know. Some people give themselves hickeys with the great regard they have for their own selves, not their own themselves. And it's a self-centered society right now, you know, and it's all mixed up. I mean, nobody's going to know nobody knows what tomorrow's going to bring. But we never did. We always pretended, and we had illusions, you know, we made it seem like we knew, but the only person that knows is the amazing Kreskin. And then I don't know, you know, he's one of my best friends. He's a mentalist. But when I had him on the show and he would leave town, he didn't know how to get to the Lincoln Tunnel. I said, how much of a mentalist are you? Then I had the amazing Randi, is that his name? Uri Geller, who's the one from Israel. He could mind bend. What he did was he could bend a spoon just by thinking about it. Can you imagine that as a talent? And I tested him. I had my producer at the time, a female producer on WOR, and he took her key to her apartment and he held it up and he bent it. Bad news is he didn't know how to bend it back. So she stayed with me that night. Well, it's not a bad thing. Anyway, this is it. It's a way that we are in showbiz. We're all in everybody's in the biz. Everybody, even the bird. The bird's got she's got her own show now. She was a co-host, and all of a sudden she's biting my wire and starting to talk. She's not going to be around too much longer. Not with that routine. It's a Reynolds wrap.